Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues, and today we have both, a topical issue and an interesting person to discuss it.
Indeed. It's always nice when those two things coincide, and they have this week. We are very pleased today to have one of my partners on, Vicki Behenna. She works with me at Crowe Dunlevy. She and her husband Scott have a son, Michael Behenna, who's been in the news some, and we're going to be talking about Michael and his events and things that have gone on in his life and how he's doing now and what's going on. It's kind of an update. We've done a show previously on Michael's situation in the military, and this is kind of a follow-up on that.
It's a story that will make you think, and it's all coming up today on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
I like the idea of improvisation and starting with not a preconceived idea. All of my work is about visual images taken from my memory. I'm Brenda Kingery. I am an artist and I'm a proud Chickasaw. One time I said, "Oh God, please don't let me die with my paintings in the closet." And what I would want them to be is everywhere. I would want them to be loved, to be used, to be respected. You work your whole life doing this. You just keep going as long as you can. And I have such a good background with a 106-year-old grandmother that I've always thought in my mind I would just paint till I'm 106. My Chickasaw heritage has become a primary part of my life. And the reason is, it's a place I call home.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofenation.com.
People have been talking about energy independence for a long time. It's always been popular, but today it's possible.
We have an enormous supply of oil and gas in the United States, much more than we thought just a few years ago.
New technology, massive new discoveries, largely made by Oklahoma companies. It literally changes everything.
And Oklahoma is leading the charge. Go watch this video to see why. Energy independence starts with us.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
It's a real personal pleasure for me to introduce our guest today because she's a partner of mine at Crowe Dunlevy. Vicki Behenna has been with us now since the first of the year. She did her undergraduate work at the University of Oklahoma, did her law work at Oklahoma City University, and for 25 years or so was an assistant United States attorney for the Western District of Oklahoma, doing an awful lot of work enforcing the laws of the United States, both civil and criminal. She, as I say, is now at our firm doing white-collar crime and other white-collar criminal defense. She's not committing any crimes, I'm sure, and doing other litigation work. She and her husband Scott are the parents of Michael Behenna, who is really one of the topics of today's show, but we're really pleased to welcome Vicki back to another appearance here on The Verdict. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think we want to hear your story, your family story, and Michael's story, but back up the story to where you think is relevant and bring us forward on this journey.
Well, I mean, Michael is the oldest of my three sons. Our family grew up in Edmond together. The boys went to public schools there in Edmond. Michael graduated from Memorial High School. About the time he was going into college, 9/11 occurred. Michael felt it was his responsibility to serve his country. And so we have many discussions with him that freshman year and sophomore year of college where he wanted to go ahead and enlist. He felt it was his obligation to serve. And I was trying to tell him, just finish your school, finish your college education. If there's a chance for you to serve your country after that, then you can do that. Michael got involved in ROTC, excelled at the ROTC program. So was commissioned as a second lieutenant upon his graduation in 2006. Michael immediately went into officers basic training, infantry officers basic training, went to Ranger School, got his Ranger tab, went to jump school long before, while he was still in college, so he had his jump school behind him. Joined the 101st Airborne Division just before they deployed to Iraq in September of 2007. He went to airborne school while he was at Fort Campbell. So he goes to Iraq as a young...
And where are we in the war with Iraq at this point?
We are now starting the surge.
Okay.
So it's the latter part of 2007. That's exactly when the surge is going on in Iraq.
And
so
the
he's
surge,
part of that.
the intent of the surge was to try and get this thing to some resolution.
That's exactly right. To minimize the insurgency that was going on in Iraq and try to gain some control of those villages.
Okay, so Saddam is gone.
Saddam's gone.
But there's obviously a lot of issues still taking place in Iraq at this time, and Michael enters the fray at that
That's
juncture.
exactly right.
Okay.
September of '07, he goes in as a platoon leader of a small platoon. He only had a 19-man platoon.
How old was he?
Michael
that
was
time?
23 years old, very young.
Okay.
And things go well. I mean, you know, there are issues. I'm not trying to say that it went without any kind of issues or concerns, but at least as far as it related to his platoon, things went well. I mean, the platoon meshed together really well. They worked well together. In April of 2008, April 21st, as a matter of fact, Michael's platoon was hit by an IED. It was a massive explosion that flipped one of the MRAPs on its side. I mean, these are thousands of pounds, these trucks. And it killed 2 of Michael's soldiers, killed 2 Iraqis that were traveling with the platoon, seriously injured the platoon sergeant and company medic that was traveling with the platoon. After that attack, Michael read a military intelligence report that identified that Al-Qaeda was responsible for the attack on his platoon, and that a man by the name of Ali Mansour, who was an Iraqi policeman, was a member of that Al-Qaeda cell. And his role in the cell was to sit at the Iraqi police station, which sat kind of on a hill, and oversaw Road Tampa, which was the main thoroughfare through the desert. And he would report on the movement of coalition forces in the desert and transport explosives to different sites for the Al-Qaeda cell. Michael read that intelligence report, understanding that he was a person responsible and a dangerous person, worked with the local sheikh in Albatoma. It took him about 2 weeks, but they found Mansour at home. The platoon detained him without incident, took him into custody. 10 days later, because of the catch and release policy that was in place at that time in Iraq, Michael learned that Mansour was going to be released. And Michael's company commander told Michael to take him home. Michael, fearing for the lives of his soldiers and himself, quite honestly, thought what I would do is do another interrogation of Mansour and find out why he was traveling back and forth to Syria. And you should know, too, before Michael did this field interrogation or questioning, Mansour had been interrogated by Army intelligence on 4 occasions while he was at Cobb Spiker, which was the command post. And even the Army intelligence person who was doing the interrogations found that he was deceptive, Mansour was deceptive, and should be sent to Buka for further interrogations. Obviously, for some reason, he was not, and he was released. So Michael, knowing all that information, decided, and knew that they hadn't asked him anything about the attack on the 21st of April. Michael decides to do the field interrogation, of course. Things went from bad to worse.
What happened during the interrogation?
Michael had his translator with him. He sat, and he took Mansour to a culvert. And when I think of culverts, I think of Oklahoma culverts, where they're those small, these are huge 12 by 12 concrete culverts that run underground. And they're not underground, they're railroad tracks that run over them. So, and it's kind of a pass-through in the desert where sheep herders and goat herders can move their livestock. So Michael took him to the culvert. He felt it was a little more secure, it wasn't in the open. He had another soldier with him, his translator, sat Mansour down, began asking him questions. The translator was sitting behind, or standing behind Michael to his left. Mansour was sitting in front of him about 2 feet to 3 feet from him on a concrete pile. Michael begins asking questions. At one point in time, he didn't understand a response that Mansour gave. Michael understood a little bit of Arabic. Turned his head to his left to get the translation from his translator. When he did, he said he heard a concrete chunk or rock hit the side of the culvert by his head. When he turned back, Mansour is no longer standing, or no longer seated. He's now standing. His arm is outstretched. Michael thinks he's reaching for his weapon, so he steps to the side, shoots a controlled pair, and kills Mansour, and is then charged with murder.
And then what?
And is convicted. And we have a...
Where?
is at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Well, okay, so this is not, you know, like a murder that might take place in the United States or a shooting that might take place. What's the process in the military and under such with so few eyewitnesses, such little information, and completely removed from the United States judicial system? What's the process?
It's under the military
Uniform
courts martial.
Code of Military Justice. Yes.
And that's where Michael fell, because all service members fall under that jurisdiction. And so with regard to the investigation, there wasn't really much of an investigation. It was obviously Michael's weapon. They obviously did some ballistics from that and knew that the gunshot, I mean, they didn't even retrieve the body, I don't think, for almost a week afterward. And so, you know, the forensic evidence was very limited. But because Michael was deployed at the time, he was under, as I said, the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice. He came back, redeployed to the United States with the 101st Airborne Division, and had his trial at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Not in the civilian system, but under the military system.
When did you or your husband first find out that there'd been a problem?
You know, Michael, immediately after the shooting, Michael came back on R&R. So within 2 days, he was back in the United States. And he was here, I think it was 14 days, 16 days, something like that, he was back here. And when he left to go back to Iraq, I was out shopping, it was a Saturday. I was waiting for a call from him because I wanted to make sure he'd made it back to the FOB, the Forward Operating Base, safely. I get a call from Michael. He tells me that there's an investigation. I said, an investigation about what? And he said, well, there was a shooting that I was involved in. And at that point in time, I said, Michael, don't talk to me anymore about it. I mean, there's not a mother-child privilege.
Right.
And I darn sure didn't want him to confess something that I would be called as a witness to testify against my own son. So I made him immediately stop, don't tell me anything. And the only thing he told me after that, he said, Mom, if they just know what happened out there, everything would be okay. I remember telling him, Michael, that's great, because criminal justice system is a search for the truth, and that will serve you well. Have you gotten a lawyer? And we had that discussion, and I advised him at that point in time to get a lawyer and to advise him further.
Well, we're going to take a break here. It's probably a good juncture to come back, because what happens next and what happens in the military trial is another chapter in this saga. But we're visiting with Vicki Behenna, the mother of Michael Behenna, and we'll be right back on The Verdict.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Byers. We're visiting with Vicki Behenna, the mother of Michael Behenna, and when we left the story, we were kind of at the midway point of the juncture. The incident had occurred in Iraq, and we're trying to figure out what happens next.
Then the trial occurred at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
It does, yes.
And what year?
2008, February 2008.
And the incident was in which year? The incident itself was in 2008?
May in 2007.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it was 2009. He deployed in 2007. May in 2008, the shooting incident occurred, and the trial was in February of 2009. Sorry.
Okay. So you've been thinking about this for over a year now at the time the trial comes along.
Right.
Were you there at the trial?
Of course.
Yeah, and how long did it take?
It took a week.
And what was the result?
What was he charged with?
He was charged with murder.
Okay.
First-degree premeditated murder. It was the only trial that I've been to where it's a murder incident where the defense introduces the forensic evidence, because the forensic evidence supported Michael's claim of self-defense. And there are technical things about the trajectory of the bullets that the forensic evidence was important and supported.
Now, I would think that there's not a whole lot of trials where the United States military is trying one of their own soldiers for first-degree murder.
You would be surprised.
Really?
There is a group of soldiers at Leavenworth right now we refer to as Leavenworth 10 because they are soldiers and Marines that have ended up in Fort Leavenworth as a result of decisions that they made in a combat zone.
All right, well, take us through the trial. What was the evidence that was presented?
Well, again, I mean, we presented, the defense presented the forensic evidence. Michael, when I said before, shot a controlled pair. One enters under the right armpit, the other one in the right temple. The trajectory of the bullets were level, parallel to one another and level. Again, inconsistent with the theory, which was the prosecution's theory, that Michael executed him in the head while he was seated on a rock. Obviously, if he'd done that, Michael standing above him, the trajectory of the bullets would have been in a downward fashion. So we introduced the forensic evidence that supported that the man was moving toward
standing,
Michael.
yeah.
He was standing, the bullet enters under the right armpit. This arm was either up or out of the way, otherwise had it been down, there would have been an injury to that arm. The way the body fell, the pooling of the blood, all supported Michael's claim of self-defense. The prosecution had their own forensic expert that they did not allow to testify, who told them that he believed Michael's story fit the forensic evidence. They instead sent him home. That was the whole issue on the appeal. We went all the way through the military justice system, the appellate system, on what we call a Brady violation. That's where the government prosecutors withhold evidence that is exculpatory for the defense.
And did Michael testify?
He did. He testified in his own defense, exactly the way I described,
Yeah.
obviously a little more detail, but exactly how I described.
Then after the conviction, what happened?
Well, we had the issue of a mistrial because the government withheld evidence. So that was pending for about 30 days. And then the military judge denied the motion for mistrial, and Michael was taken into custody, and he was moved to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
Well, getting back to the verdict, how is a verdict in a military trial conducted?
Well, it's called a panel, and Kent would probably be able to get these terms better than I, but it's a military panel. It's not 12-person. Michael had a jury of 7, and so it's a majority vote. It doesn't have to be unanimous like it does in a civilian criminal system.
And these are made up of active military?
They are, that are the same grade or higher than Michael. At that time, he was a first lieutenant.
And do you know what the vote was?
We don't. I think it's all anonymous.
Okay.
They vote on a secret ballot.
And okay, well, I mean, you hear the result of this verdict. What's going through your mind as a mother?
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I mean, that Friday night when the jury came back, I remember being concerned because it was a week-long trial. There was much forensic evidence that defense presented, and they were out about 2 hours. And I've done enough jury trials. I understand, you know, quick verdicts, really quick are usually defense verdicts. Hour, 2 hours are usually prosecution verdicts. If you start getting longer than that, then you're worried if they're somehow going to mistrial or they're going to have a defense verdict. But no, I was really concerned when I heard, you know, the first count, they didn't convict him on premeditated murder, they convicted him on second-degree murder. So the first specification they read was not guilty. Michael was also charged with providing a false statement, a sworn statement, which he was not convicted on. And so the first 2 verdicts I heard were not guilty, and then all of a sudden I heard a guilty, and I thought, what did they say was guilty of? I mean, what was that? And what it was a lesser included second-degree murder of the murder charge.
Then it processed through several appellate levels?
It did. I mean, we went through 4 years of appeals through the military system.
And is he imprisoned at this time, or is he free?
No, he's in Fort Leavenworth. It's a military prison.
All of the time of these appeals, yeah.
All of the time.
Not today, but
No,
all of the time
thank
of
God.
the appeals,
Yes.
So tell us about the appeal process. How did that go?
I mean, it's obviously not well for us. You know, the last step, the Army Court of Appeals really just kind of, my words, rubber stamped the conviction. And it was a 3-man panel. They were colonels in the military and upheld everything, even though there were many issues on instructions and this Brady violation. They just upheld the conviction. Then we went to the Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces, which is in the military justice system, but they're civilian judges. They're not colonels in the Army. And there, it was a 3-2. I mean, we had one more judge who would have gone our way, and we would have at least, I mean, Michael wouldn't have been out of the woods. He probably would have been retried again, but at least the conviction would have been set aside. But that didn't work. Then we tried the U.S. Supreme Court and had hopes, although I know it's very difficult to get into the Supreme Court, very hopeful that they would take this case, and they did not.
At some point, he must have been sentenced.
The jury does that.
Okay.
So they convict, then you go back the next day. And you know, that whole weekend was just, I mean, it was just unbelievable, because Friday night he's convicted. Saturday morning we learn of the Brady violation because the forensic expert, the government's own forensic expert, sends an email saying, look, I mean, they should have told you that I agreed with Michael's version of the events. I thought it was self-defense as well, because his story fits the forensic evidence. That happened Saturday morning. We asked the judge for a mistrial at that time. He doesn't want to rule on the mistrial, but then pulls the jury back into sentence. And they sentenced Michael initially to 25 years. 25 years. The convening authority reduces it to 20 years, and then the Army Clemency Board reversed it, or not, didn't reverse it, but reduced it again to 15.
What's happened to your family life during this time? I mean,
I mean,
whatever was normal must have been set aside, and it must have just taken the entire family's preoccupied on these series of events.
It totally did. I mean, you can imagine the legal bills, okay, in and of themselves were astronomical. So, you know, friends were helping us. Jack Dawson and Rachel Moore, they're lawyers here in town, helped us set up a legal defense fund. And they were trying to do things to raise money for Michael's defense. At that time, my middle son, Brett, was just starting his first year at OU Law School. I mean, I feel like I missed his entire law school career because we were so focused on Michael. We were in appeals.
We are running out of time. We have about a minute and a half or so left. So bring us up to date. Fast forward to today. What's happened, and how's Michael doing now? What is his situation?
Michael called me February, said that he had been granted parole. He came home March 14th. And he has been trying to get his life back. He's working on a ranch.
So what changed? Why did the system suddenly work after falling short so many times?
This is parole. He's got a felony conviction. He'll have that the rest of his life. But the Court of Parole there or the Board of Parole there in Washington, D.C. decided that there was no reason to keep him.
How long did he serve?
5 years.
Okay.
You see him now often.
Yes.
For family dinners and the like. How's he getting along?
He's doing well. He really is. I mean, there's been a transition period. I see that he's still transitioning. He likes his solitude right now, which is something that I understand. He likes being out in open spaces. He loves being at the ranch in Medford. I understand that too, having been confined for 5 years.
Yeah. Well, you give him our best, will you?
Yeah.
I certainly will. Thank you.
In the time we have left, what should the viewer take away from this story?
I don't think we should so harshly judge our service members who have to make life and death decisions in combat.
In an instant.
In an instant. When somebody who you know to be the enemy, and that is not Michael's decision. I mean, that was the Army intelligence identified him as Al-Qaeda. Yes.
Right. Vicki Behenna, our guest today on The Verdict. Vicki, thank you so much for coming on. I know this is not an enjoyable process for you to relive these years, but I hope our viewers took something away from this and learned from it.
Thank you very much.
Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
The human body, an amazing machine. What we're capable of is astonishing. If we look to what makes us human, we find that life is more than a heartbeat, and hope is more than an idea. That knowledge moves us forward, and our community keeps us together. OU Medicine is at its heart, keeping Oklahoma alive and well.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
I really think people are so unaware of the number of kids waiting just in Oklahoma. And I think if more people knew that those children were out there waiting, you know, I think that just by the way we live our lives and the people we talk to, that maybe we can help encourage adoption from Oklahoma.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
We're back on the set of The Verdict. We heard from Vicki Behenna today, who described her son Michael's ordeal as a military agent in Iraq. And you know, there's so many layers to this story. You have Vicki's story as a mother, and you have Michael, who was so patriotic that he wanted to serve his country and gets in, and then this series of events takes place, and you know, and today he's got to look back at that entire process and say, you know, what happened? Well, how did I get in this position?
Well, and knowing a little bit about the military, which I do, I noticed that he had excelled at every level in the military. It wasn't like he was dragging along, was forced to go in and was just barely making it. He was excelling at the highest level until this event occurred, and then he handled his incarceration in a way that certainly the family is proud, and I know he is proud. He hates it, but he's proud of being able to endure it. But he's off to a better life now, getting out, getting around, in the wide open spaces where he wants to be, and we just wish him our best.
And as I said at the beginning of this show, this show will make our viewers think. They will rethink the process of how the pressures that we put on our young men and women in the military, and also about the judicial process that the military conducts and how that system works, and how one mother's personal story can kind of bring all of these to light. You can reach Vicki Behenna if you would be so inclined to at the Crowe Dunlevy website. That's crowedunlevy.com. And we have a website, theverdict.com. We'll see you next week.